What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the official reveal trailer has finally launched for Modern Warfare 2, and I was fortunate enough to attend an online meeting yesterday, and in this, I got to see a bunch of extra stuff on top of this reveal trailer, and I wanted to share all of the most important information that came from that with you guys today. Now, first up, I do want to give a thank you to Activision for inviting me to this online event. Keep in mind, I am not one of the creators that was invited out to play the game last week. I realized there was a small group of people that were able to actually go to the studio and play. I'm not one of them, so I haven't played the game yet, but I have seen a decent amount of gameplay behind the scenes, and also there were several presentations where the devs were going through and talking about a lot of the new features as well as returning features, and that's primarily what I wanted to put together into one video today. And let's kick this off with gameplay mechanics. Some of these mechanics are just returning mechanics from the past, and others are brand new. And the first thing I wanted to mention for you guys is sliding will be returning. However, they've also included a dive feature, so you can do either one of these. Now, I don't know exactly how this is mapped out and how you perform one versus the other. They basically just let us know that you can slide or dive in this game. Additionally, a really big introduction for the Modern Warfare series at least, they brought swimming to this game, and I realize it has been in some older Call of Duty games like Black Ops 3 for instance, that had swimming in it. But I don't believe any Modern Warfare games have had any swimming, so it's at least new to this game. And they actually completely reworked all of the water physics and everything surrounding water, but we'll get into that a little bit later on, since right now I'm mainly focusing on player mechanics. But in this game, you can swim. That does include underwater as well as above water, just in case you were wondering. And you can shoot while swimming, but bullets will be dealing less damage through water. Next up, for new player mechanics, they're implementing a ledge hang sort of a system. So if there's a high ledge that you could normally mantle up to, where it would be like head level or higher, for instance, where you'd normally have to like jump up, catch the ledge, pull yourself up on top of that, and that's all you really could do in the past. With Modern Warfare 2, they've got a system in place where you can still jump up, catch that ledge, and you can start pulling yourself up, but instead of mantling directly on top of that piece of cover, you can peek over the top of it, and you can actually aim and shoot at people while peeking over top of that. It sounds very similar to like the ladder mechanic from Modern Warfare 2019, where you could be climbing a ladder and at any point just stop and aim your gun and shoot at people. This is going to be somewhat similar, but instead you're going to be like latched on to the top of a ledge. Now, on a similar note, they discussed some platforming-like features that they've added, kind of similar to that ledge hang, but more of a climbing sort of an element, where you could potentially have multiple ledges going up like a steep wall, and they're implementing a feature where you could jump and hang onto one of those ledges, and then from that ledge, you could propel yourself upwards so you could grab onto the next ledge a little bit higher up. Now, unfortunately, with both of these mechanics, they didn't actually show them off to us. All they did was talk about them, and even the YouTubers that got to play it last week, apparently these features were not in the build that they played. So I'm definitely interested in seeing more when it comes to this, especially thinking about the Battle Royale side of things. I think a climbing mechanic like this could really go a long way into getting up cliffs or something without having to use a zipline. Now, in addition to that, we have some returning mechanics. Mounting is there, Tac Sprint appears to be there as well. So no surprise with that one. I don't know what slide canceling is like or if they've adjusted the ability to slide cancel. Again, I didn't actually get hands-on time with the game, so I can't tell you that. Perhaps one of those other YouTubers can give you more insight when it comes to those movement mechanics. Next, let's talk a little bit about vehicle mechanics they mentioned with this presentation for us. Keep in mind, this is going to be mainly focused on like Warzone, for instance, not the regular 6v6 stuff. But when it comes to this, even as a driver, you're going to have the ability to lean out of the windows of a vehicle and shoot enemy players. Of course, while doing that, you do lose the ability to steer the vehicle at that time. Also, you can shoot out tires with vehicles in this game, and the vehicle will handle accordingly. So if you shoot out the left front tire, for instance, it's going to be pulling hard to the left for the person driving, and it will slow them down. However, they mentioned that these tires are also repairable. So after that situation, if you survive, if you want to take that vehicle over, or if you were in the vehicle and survived it, there is the ability to repair those tires on the fly and get back on the road. Additionally, it looks like, at least with certain vehicles, you're able to destroy doors and stuff on them, so you get a much better shot at enemy players. Additionally, they did mention a new type of helicopter. It's a helicopter troop carrier. So quite a large helicopter that people can actually like walk around inside of as somebody's flying it around. And apparently, even if you're solo in that helicopter as the pilot, you can get out of the pilot's seat and go walk around in the back, and it will automatically just hover in place while you do that, and you can shoot down on other players. So I'm interested to see how that one ends up playing out when it comes to Warzone. Sounds like it might be a little on the cheesy side, but it all depends on how they end up balancing it at the end of the day. After that, let's have a deeper look at the water mechanics, because that was actually a big portion of the presentation, because this is something that they have really been building from the ground up with the game. It seems like they've essentially created a whole new water engine with this. And with this, we did see a tech demo as well, and from what I saw, it seems to be very impressive. Off the top of my head, at least, I can't really think of any other games that have water mechanics that are quite as good and detailed as this. So the first thing to point out with water is apparently they're going to be utilizing it across all of the modes. So regular, core, 6v6 multiplayer, the ground war style maps, as well as Warzone, there's going to be water implemented into all of this. And like I said earlier, you can swim on top of the water or underneath the water, obviously with limits surrounding that. You can't just stay underwater forever. Also, every element in the water is going to make ripples. It's going to have an effect on what the water is doing, which is quite interesting. And there's going to be a current with the water as well. So certain pieces of equipment, like the proximity mine, for instance, it actually will float on top of water. It's one of the design features of the proximity mine. So you can use it as a mine for vehicles and players on land, or you can throw it in the water and it will work as a proximity mine against boats that are on the water. However, since it's a floating element, it actually follows a current and it will eventually float away on you. Now, some other things they mentioned with the water is they were careful to fine-tune realism versus gameplay. So when it comes to visibility, for instance, you are going to have better visibility than you would actually have underwater. That's just for the sake of gameplay. However, they do say that the deeper you go, the worse the visibility is going to be, and also the less visible you will be to people that are above the water looking down into it. And another thing that's not necessarily fully realistic is you can fire guns underwater, and while they're still lethal, they are going to be dealing less damage. Now, if you've ever seen a gun fire underwater, generally speaking, it's not going to cycle the next round. You will be able to fire the first shot, but the second shot probably isn't going to make it into the chamber properly. But for the sake of gameplay, you can fire underwater. Also, if you've seen bullets interact underwater, they usually only go a few feet before they lose all their energy, and that doesn't appear to be the case as well here. So when it comes to gameplay design, this makes sense. I'm totally on board with it. I can suspend disbelief when it comes to that. I just like the fact that it's at least going to be reducing damage if you are firing a gun underwater. Next up, let's talk about some of the equipment that they talked about in this. And first up, I just want to mention some of the equipment that is confirmed to be returning. Of course, we've got proximity mines, which, like I said, they can also float. We've got flashbangs, semtex, smoke, frag grenade, throwing knife, all of the usual suspects there, as well as snapshot grenades and, unfortunately, the heartbeat sensor. So it seems like basically any piece of equipment that was in Modern Warfare, it's likely to be returning to Modern Warfare 2. But now let's talk about some of the new pieces of equipment, keeping in mind they were a bit unclear here as to which one of these were field upgrades and which one were just regular equipment. I think all three of these are field upgrades, but I may be mistaken on that. First, we have a tactical camera, which is in some ways like a camera spike from Black Ops 1, but it is much smaller and you can toss it, so it's going to be a bit harder to locate and spot. And with this, you can throw it down and use it manually, so you can have a look at the camera at any time throughout your gameplay and monitor what's going on where you threw your camera. Or if you just throw it down and sort of forget about it, it will have an enemy detection system. So I believe it makes like a little beeping sound if an enemy comes within view of that. So then you could pull that up, or you just use that information knowing there's an enemy there. And with this, if you are looking through the camera, you can tag enemies with the camera itself for your teammates. As for the next one, this is a drill charge, which sounds pretty interesting as an anti-camper and anti-vehicle measure. With this, it's something that you throw on a wall and it will drill through the wall and then fire a grenade onto the other side of that. So if you have an enemy camping in a room, for instance, and the wall is thin enough, you can throw this charge directly on the wall outside of that room. It'll launch a grenade in there and potentially kill the enemy player, or at the very least get them moving out of whatever corner they might be in. So when you breach, they might be a bit more on the scrambled side and you'll have that slight advantage. Additionally, they mentioned that if you throw this onto the side of a vehicle, the people in the vehicle will get a notification that that drill charge has hit the vehicle, and if they don't get out of that vehicle, it will kill everyone inside without necessarily destroying the vehicle. So they mentioned it doesn't actually do a lot of damage to a vehicle, so it's great at taking people out of a vehicle and killing them, But then, assuming you've killed all those players, either by the explosive killing them or forcing them out and then you shoot them, you can go and take over that vehicle and it will still be functional. And then finally, for the equipment they showed off for us, this one is called DDoS, and this is confirmed to be a field upgrade. And with this, it's an EMP-like device. So as you're using it, it can help you locate enemy equipment, and it gives you the ability to launch a directional EMP pulse that will destroy equipment and temporarily disable vehicles. And I actually really like the sounds of this one. I feel like it could potentially be a great choice in multiplayer as well as Warzone. I really like the idea of being able to disable an enemy vehicle as it's driving near you, so it makes those vehicles just a little bit less powerful and exploitable as a combat mechanic rather than a traversal mechanic. But finally, there's one last item, which I think is a bit of a meme item. I can't really see people taking this too seriously. This is an inflatable decoy. So with this, you throw down this mine onto the ground and an inflatable soldier will come out of this. This can be activated manually, so you can throw it down and then manually make it pop a soldier out of that. Or you can just throw the mine down and it can be activated via enemy proximity. So if an enemy walks close to it, this inflatable decoy will suddenly pop up next to them and potentially distract them, get them to fire a few bullets, and reveal their position. However, from the looks and sounds of this, it's going to be completely harmless to enemy players. It's just going to be used as a sort of distraction and detection piece of equipment. Like I said, this one seems a bit silly. I can't see people taking this overly seriously, but for the memes, it sounds great. So there we go, that's some of the equipment that I wanted to point out. Now let's get into maps. And they didn't reveal like every map that's going to be in the game or even a map count. I have no idea what the map count's going to be. But they did mention the separation between what they call battle maps and core maps. And this distinction is important. Battle maps are built for ground war and other modes. That's what they said. And what I suspect that means is DMZ. Now, DMZ is something they didn't say a word about during this presentation. I still feel like this is something they're keeping under wraps. This is a mode that has been leaked where it's a loot and extract style of a mode. And I suspect it's going to be taking place on the ground war maps. And with these maps, they are the typical ground war style, although it's nice that they mentioned that these were built specifically for this purpose, and they aren't just like chunks of a battle royale map that they threw together and turned into a ground war map, and I do like the sound of that. But after that, let's talk a little bit about the core maps, and they were careful to state that the core maps in this game are built exclusively for 6v6. There was no mention of separate 10v10 maps like we saw in Modern Warfare. It looks like all of them are going to be built with 6v6 in mind, and then perhaps they'll still have like a larger player count mode that you can play on these maps, but there was no mention of that, I should say. And with these, I'm very excited to hear that they're apparently taking a different design philosophy approach from Modern Warfare 2019. When they marketed that game, they talked about how the maps were a bit bigger and more porous and had places where a lower skilled player could potentially hide or take some time to just regroup their thoughts and stuff, so it's not an overwhelming experience. But unfortunately, this just didn't land very well with a lot of the community. It seemed like Shoot House and Shipment were the only really super popular maps in that game, at least for respawn game modes. So it seems like they've learned some lessons here, because what they mentioned about their core maps is they're trending toward being a little bit on the smaller side. They're going to be cleaner, and they're going to have a lot less verticality than the battle maps or the ground war maps that will be in the game. So from the sounds of it, if you want that experience that's a little bit more porous and room to breathe and some verticality and sort of power positions and camping positions, then you go play on the battle maps. Whereas if you want more traditional Call of Duty, you go to the core maps. And at least the description from this sounds promising. Now, I haven't seen the maps. I don't know if this is actually the case or just how they're marketing it. Only time will tell, but at the very least, it sounds promising to me. Now, finally, to wrap up the highlights from this, let's talk about some new modes that they're bringing in. The first one is called Knockout, and this is a one-life round-based mode with revives, and it is a 6v6 mode played on the core maps. And from the sounds of it, it's fairly similar to the heist mode in Black Ops 4. So for every round, there's a package on the map, and both teams are fighting over this package, and the team that's holding the package when the time runs out will win the round, or the team that just simply eliminates the other team before the round ends, they will also be winning the round. As for the second new mode that they talked about a little bit, this is called Prisoner Rescue, and this is going to be a sort of attack and defend or breach and siege style of gameplay, where one team is defending and holding hostages in a defensible area, and the other team has to go in and extract the prisoners or simply eliminate the enemy team. And apparently this one is actually going to be taking place on both the battle maps, so the large scale like ground war maps, as well as the core maps. So it looks like a lot of versatility with that. And while this mode doesn't really appeal to me too much, I'm still interested in checking it out, and who knows, maybe I will end up enjoying it. And with that, I think that's a good place to leave this. There is one other big thing that I want to talk about, but it definitely deserves its own video, and this is how the Gunsmith is laid out. Because they have made some very key changes to Gunsmith this time around, so expect a video from me talking about all the details of Gunsmith, either later today if I can get around to it, or at the latest, it'll be coming tomorrow. And with all this, you guys are probably wondering my opinion, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't really feel comfortable sharing an opinion at this stage. I haven't gotten any hands-on time with the game. I saw a presentation, I saw some campaign gameplay, as well as some tech demos, and that's it. I can't really determine the quality of a game based on just those alone. So I'm not here to hype this game up for you guys, and I'm also not going to trash on it at this point. I want to get my hands on it, I want to play it for myself before really forming any strong opinions about it. So I'm still in the cautiously optimistic, wait and see sort of a mindset with this. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in the comments section below. What are some of your initial reactions to the things I talked about in today's video? Whether that's some of the mechanics, or the map design philosophy, the game modes, the equipment, the water changes, just let me know all of those thoughts in those comments. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more Modern Warfare 2 content if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.